Hey everybody, just checking my phone, making sure it's aiming the right way. Alright, I did a video the other day, I did the whole thing and it shut off in 2 minutes and I didn't know it. I filmed the whole video that wasn't filming. Anyway, hey, this is Matt from the Palette Studio. If you look at any of my other videos, I basically built a studio out of pallets and kind of made it up because I don't have any experience doing that. I just had the free pallets, so I needed a place to play with a little bit of volume. We got no room in the house, and so I built it. So I guess where there's a will to play guitar, there's a way. But right now, it's nice outside. Well, we had rain, but it's nice. It's a nice morning, and so I'm out here. But I was gonna talk a little about, shoot, I got a piece of paper around here somewhere. Oh, hang on. Anyway, I'll keep talking. So, I'm 56. So when I was, I think 25 in the mid-90s, I started working at Gibson USA in Nashville at the factory. I worked there till 2007 or 2008, so it ended up being 13 years. I worked in the body line, so like this, the bodies would come into us off a carver, we'd sand them, route them for binding, do a neck slot, various things. And I was there, I became lead person of that department, and ES was still in Nashville at that time, so I helped the transition, training some people that came up from Memphis, trying to get it organized to move to Memphis, but it was a total shit show, I'll tell you that. You know, the last day we were just throwing stuff in boxes and stuff. It was a mess, and it was crazy. So when they sent like 5 people the first time. Sent some guy to our department and just told us, we'll train them on every job in 2 weeks. And we were like, some of these jobs took months to learn, and they wanted them to learn about 15 different jobs in 2 weeks. That's what corporate people were thinking. And so that's kind of how it started, and it didn't get a whole lot better. But, on the floor, we pulled it off without corporate help and made it happen, but it wasn't pretty, I'll tell you that. So that's kind of, as a former employee of Gibson, my take on the Fender situation. I mean, I don't like it at all, obviously, because my first guitar here, got it in 1987. It's a made in Japan Fender Squire Stratocaster. It was originally all black. It's gone through many changes. It's still playable, even though the frets are so worn down they can't be leveled. So I got some dead spots, but I still play it because it's just, I played it for so long. If I'm anxious or have anxiety, I'll just pick the guitar up and hold it. It's just sort of that kind of my safe spot. And right here, you can't see it, but I got Fender Blues Jr. I'm going to play it there. So I loved Fender amps too. I remember I bought a Hot Rod Deluxe right when they came out in the 90s, the first generation. And it was it sounded good, but, well, the drive channels didn't. And then the foot switch popped every time you changed it. And I took it back to the store where I got it in Nashville, Corner Music. They eventually called me and said they talked to Fender and they didn't really understand, but they just were told that's part of the design. I was like, it was a deafening pop. And it was like, what are these people thinking? So really, like when I started working at Gibson, it was, you're all starry-eyed at first. But then you learn really quick, it's not made by hand, where in my mind it was like luthiers working on a guitar, or somebody, or just a few people running a guitar from beginning to end. I mean, Gibson guitar passes through, at least when I was there, 30, 40 different people. Basically, you're hired off the street and you're put in one spot. You're told your job's to sand the top. You got 400 to do a day. They'll be piled there, you pile them there, and then they get carted to the next person who sands another part. It's got, it's unfortunate. There's some jobs, like in final assembly when they're doing setups. I mean, you have to be able to play guitar to do that. But running that chromatic scale all day would drive me insane. Just, you go by final, at that time, it was just like, da, 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 da. It would just drive you crazy hearing it all day long. But I don't want to trash Gibson, because I worked with some of the greatest people there. And a lot of musicians went and started working there. And at that time, I don't know what it's like now, but at that time it was a place to get a job easy if you first came to Nashville. And it wasn't a job most people planned on staying at. It was basically a stepping job, a job just to make money till you get a career job. At that time, I hired on 50 cents above minimum wage, and that's what they paid. We weren't even competing with manufacturer pay at that time. We were just above fast food pay. So it wasn't, what I expected. I do remember two guys got hired on, and they had come from some school in Middle Tennessee that was a woodworking school where they learned really luthier techniques. I don't even know if they would be considered luthiers. I don't even know if you get certified or what. But they knew how to build a guitar from beginning to end out of a piece of wood. I mean, not even like a square piece of wood. One of them would go out in the woods and try and find big burl on sides of trees. If you look at a tree, if you ever see one of those big weird knots growing off it, that's burl. And he'd go in the woods, and if he found one big enough to make a body, he'd cut it off and then make a guitar out of it. Because I saw one of them, it was beautiful. But anyway, sorry, the point, those two guys, one of them played, one of them didn't. But both of them were like, what the fuck? Because they actually thought they were going to be building guitars, and they got in there, and one of them got neck fit, and then neck fit, you learn how to neck fit, and you check it with a caliper thing that lines up. I think you can buy them on Stewart Mac, and it's got a range. You get it in, hang it on the tree, and it goes to the next department. And they would push the number over quality constantly. Well, pretty much all the time. So if you were neck fit, you had to do a certain amount a day. And you basically, to keep your job, you learn from the other neck fitters where you can cut corners, techniques to get quicker, things to ignore, and that they tell you to do. I mean, it's like that in most manufacturing jobs. So, especially something working with wood, where it's kind of a lot of variables. And the same thing in body line. And then you'd have crap like in body line, when you got to the end of the body line, me, and then they got an official QC person would grade the tops and the backs. C grade would be an opaque color. Double A would be good enough for like a see-through top, but no curl. Then double A, you got curl in the middle, but it doesn't go to the sides. And triple A is all the way across, top to bottom. It looks great. Well, triple A, they didn't always have enough. So to pull it in the next department, that supervisor would come over and start looking at the tops and start saying, well, this double A looks good enough to be a triple A. He'd mark it, and it would go as a premium plus, which is like I don't remember at the time, but it was at least a few hundred, if not 500 more than a regular standard. So shit like that happened. But so my point is, it doesn't surprise me, and I don't want to bash Fender because I know when I was at Gibson, good guitars did get made, and it was made by the people on the floor who gave a shit. People who were musicians and understood what this instrument meant to people who bought it. That it wasn't just some throwaway thing. This is something they were going to keep a lifetime. You know, they'd been thinking about getting one for 20 years before they get one. So, but when I moved in management, I just didn't like it. When I get into scheduling meetings, they no longer call them guitars, they call them units. And I didn't really want to be a part of that. So when they offered me supervisor, I was actually making more hourly than this supervisor making salary, so I turned it down. I didn't want it, and didn't want to be in management there anyway, because the higher you went, the worse it got. Because at that time we were under a guy named Henry, who was a psycho. And the closer you got to him, the closer you got shown the door. So, you know, it was best to just stay low at a place like that and not try and move up the ladder. And there are plenty of times, buffing was a real, you know, place where things would get backed up. I remember a supervisor yelling at them, saying, if I get fired, I'm not going down alone. Or they'd keep them there, saying they can't leave till they're done. You know, at 10 hours, they're still going. I was working 12-hour days and finishing. Well, that's another thing. So I move into QC. I know the body line. I know the going backward. I know everything to the rough mill. I don't know crap about finishing. Well, it seemed like a good decision to them, make me QC and finishing. I had a guy with me, luckily, but I didn't know what I was looking at. They were talking about orange peel, fish eyes. I was like, what? I look at him, I said, I don't even have a clue what you're talking about. So that's how some of the stuff gets past quality control. When I see people write reviews like they got the worst quality control. The people doing quality control probably care at Fender. But when you're working 12-hour days, or if you got just all these people on you about passing it, even the QC supervisor, eventually you're just like, fuck it, pass it. You've got every situation where number and quality clash, they're gonna take the number and push quality to the side. That's the way it's been. I've worked at a couple other factories. It's just the way it goes. And then something like, there was a time, maybe in the early 2000s, where they had changed the lacquer formula because the former one they weren't apparently allowed to use by OSHA standard, and we'd been breathing that shit in all, 40 hours a week to 60 hours a week. And it wasn't drying properly, so it was getting stuck in buffing. Well, they just started pushing it through until customers were sending guitars back to dealers where the felt inlay thing that lays across the guitar was stuck to the guitar or left imprints in the guitar. And the thing is, they knew full well that was happening, but they kept pushing them through because somebody up the line was afraid for their job and they didn't give a shit. So I wrote some notes. I don't want to get sued by Gibson or anything, going into anything too specific. And I don't want to bash them too much. I mean, if you have a Gibson and you love it, that's great. I mean, because once it's yours and you love it and it plays well, it doesn't matter, how it got to you, but it got to you, and believe me, there were people that worked on it that cared. They weren't the people up top, I'll tell you that, but the people on the floor, not all of them, but a lot of them do care. And I know at Fender it's the same, and it sucks for them, because there are a lot of them I know from being at Gibson that are trying, because they understand what's especially a high-end Fender means. But you got these corporate assholes that squeezing out an extra dollar. The economy is bad. We got to keep our profits growing. Always expand. We have to be expanding. You know, it's just bullshit. So my take on it is I'm surprised it's taken them this long to do it. I hope they lose in court. I hope whoever came up with the idea gets their ass fired, because it's going to hurt sales. There's no way around it. And I understand most of their sales are probably from first-time buyers, but you know, they can't, right now in this economy, they can't afford losing sales to anybody, and by doing what they're doing, I don't think they're going to gain any sales by shutting these small places down, because people that buy those type of guitars know about guitars, and they're not buying Fender because the quality is not there. So that money is just going to go to another boutique builder who builds something that's unique or some other classic style model. But I doubt it will go back to Fender. I hope it doesn't, that high-end stuff. And for me, I never bought a Gibson. They gave me one. I got employee of the, wait, let me check. I'm afraid that thing's not recording, and I have to, all right, we're 16 minutes. I don't want this to be too long. I did get Guitar of the Month. That for a while there, they were giving a guitar to Employee of the Month. And I got one, and they gave me a red wine studio AA top with gold hardware. It was pretty, but I sold it. And I needed the money, and it was just too pretty a guitar for me. I just like a guitar that can take a beating like a Fender. Well, like the older Fenders. I don't know anything about the new ones. But I do love the Les Paul models, so I have 2 Epiphone Les Pauls, and basically what I'd advise anybody wanting a Gibson, and what I did, I would not buy one online. I went into a Guitar Center and just played a bunch of Epiphones, because I knew from Gibson there's just so many variables that no two are going to be exactly alike or sound alike, which is surprising. Because even with the same pickups, my 2 Epiphones, I love the DiMarzio Super Distortions, but in the 2 different guitars, the pickup, exact same pickup, it sounds different. One's brighter, one's darker. Just like the same pickup I've had that pickup in all my guitars. It's dark in this one, but I know it's got 250 pots. But I got a Schecter Tele clone that's really bright, and I got 250 pots for it, put the Super Distortion in it, and it's still bright as hell compared to this guitar. So it's just, every guitar is just its own thing. And I think the more you play one, it sounds insane, but I believe, you know, it takes that energy going through you, that spiritual flow. Something happens to the instrument too. It bonds with you, and it does change in tone. I don't know, but I don't know. But I would never give this thing up. It's probably one of the few things I've still own that I ever owned back then, that's gone through life with me. What else? So, conclusion. Just if you're bashing Fender, it's the people on top. There's people on the floor that care. If you got a Fender and you love it, you should love it, because people that made it, that actually had the hands on it on the floor, are not the same people that are doing this bullshit. And same with the Gibson. There are good ones and bad ones. Obviously the quality's not where the price is, but if you take your time, don't jump in, go to a Guitar Center and play them, a bunch of them, or keep sending them back till they send you a good one. I mean, it's a good guitar, just you can get some bad ones. And the prices, I remember every year when we'd see the new price list, we were just like, I can't believe they're jacking up the price so much. You know, way beyond the rate of inflation, just insane jumps. So I guess that's my take. I hope Fender loses, and I hope some of them corporate people lose their jobs, and somebody comes along with the idea in corporate of taking the higher route, go for quality, and try and do a slow rebuild to take that part of the marketplace they're losing to those builders. Because maybe, that would be the right way to do it.